Live. Hello, Periscope. Hello from rainy Flagler Beach, Florida. How's everybody doing today? You got issues? I know I've got some. I've got issues, and I know you've got some too. And if you don't, then I don't know what's going on. Hey there. Good to see you. Yes, I've got some issues, and we've all got them. And it's so funny because I was thinking about this morning. I've been dealing with, yes, you got to love yourself. Definitely got to love yourself. I had a situation, and I said it to myself. I said, Marjorie, you got some issues. And then I realized, we all got some issues. We all have issues. And there's nothing wrong with that. At least twice a day, that's right. I listen all day long, especially in situations like this where, we're dealing with stuff in our lives. We are all dealing with some heavy stuff here. And so we've got to go back and learn how to love ourselves through it. We're not going to be perfect, and we're not always going to handle things with grace and in the right way. And sometimes there is no right way, right? But, when I thought about that, I said, awareness is important for us to be aware that there's a problem, for us to be aware that there's an issue. And sometimes people will tell you that you've got issues in a negative or bad way. And people are carrying all kinds of burdens and all kinds of stories with them right now in their lives. And you can't help but have some issues. But here's the thing. It's how you're handling those issues. It's how you're dealing with those issues. It's how you're going to process those issues in your life. Yeah, I got some issues, but guess what? I'm working on them. Some of us are born into issues. And I write this in my book. There's nothing to prepare us for the things that we have to deal with. You gotta have grace and dignity. You gotta have grace and dignity. And I'm gonna share with you guys an issue that I have. One of a few. And it's dealing with my ex. Now, some would say, look, we understand. This man, he was, emotionally abusive. He just really was not a nice person to me, to say it lightly. So we can understand why you respond that way. But here is how it becomes an issue. When he does something, when he says something, I take it on. I hold on to it. I make it an issue. And how I see it becoming an issue is because once I hold on to that, then as I go out into the world, I start sharing that in some way with others. You understand? So I'm almost used as a funnel in some way for all of his negativity. That's right. You can't control anyone else's actions, but you can control your own. Now, I know this. I've known this because this is something that I've practiced. But there's something about an emotional trigger. And for those of you that have experienced abuse, have experienced some sort of a trauma, you know what I'm talking about. There's a trigger that will set off. And, once you catch that, as long as you're aware, and so I knew what was happening when it was happening, I knew exactly what was happening, and then I was able to sort of, pull it back. But the thing is, a lot of us don't recognize that. So when you see people and you're like, they got some issues, you got to understand they probably aren't even aware of it. They have no awareness. They can't acknowledge it. They don't know how to deal with it. So they hold on to it and they carry it for a long time. And that's why you see so many people. And then on top of that, you have this compounding issues happening in our lives. It's like one thing after another that's not giving us time to process it. That's why you hear me talk a lot about taking that time with that self-love, with that self-care, developing that ritual, to have that in the morning, to give yourself what it needs before you go out into the world, so you know how to properly deal with it. And when I thought about this, I thought about this process because it's not an easy one. And I think even after all this time with dealing with my ex, that things are better, but it could still be better, right? And the way that I deal with it. And the image that came to mind with me was almost like the image of when you're wringing out a wet towel. And you wring that towel out and all the water comes out and you shake it out to dry. And that is almost how the process is to deal with issues in our lives. And that's why a lot of us are carrying long-term issues, compounded on top of one another, because we haven't taken the time to step back and wring it out, to purge it. We haven't been courageous enough to face it and to deal with it because of the pain, because of the effort, that's involved in it. And so what I've been able to do, and what I try to tell a lot of people to do, is look at how you can take these issues, because I've seen this happen so many times, and take that issue and turn it into something else. Take that energy. That's why I love using the arts as a way of empowerment and healing. If you can be creative in how you take those issues and take that pain and heal yourself and manifest it into something else. I've been able to take the pain and the issues and create something that I can bring to the world. And I think that that's one of the most powerful things that we can do. I mean, just sitting down with pen and paper, a simple thing, and writing it out, and writing out some tough questions to ask yourself. I had someone text me about opinions that other people had about them in their workplace. And they were like, people in the workplace weren't, not so much didn't like them, but they didn't feel comfortable coming to them. And this is a very sociable and likable person, but no one on her staff wanted to come to her with anything. And she was saying that she didn't care, but you could see there was another side of her that does. And I started to tell her to ask herself some questions. If some of those things that those people are saying about her are really true. And if they are true, then how does she really feel about it? Is she willing to own some of that stuff? And if not, then what is she willing to do about it? Because now what you're doing is you're taking these opinions of people and making it your issue, right? So she's about to carry all of that stuff with her. So this is where you need to start doing some self-reflecting, okay? Sit down. Is it true? And if it is, how does that make you feel? Can you own it? Can you carry it? And deal with it. And if it's not, then what are you going to do to change it? And so, when we have these issues, it's just about taking the time, wringing out that towel, wringing it all out, and shaking it out to dry. And really just being able to face it and deal with it. Because we're going to have issues. We will have issues all through our lives. But the thing is, how are we going to deal with it? Now, this month, I decided I am not having my end of the day glass of wine that I usually have. I'm a wine lover, okay? And I don't overindulge, but I enjoy my glass of wine at the end of a long work day. And I'm not doing that this month. And I do this often just for self-discipline purposes. But as things come up, it's so interesting. At the beginning of the month, stuff started to come up. I was stressing and all this stuff again. And I could really use that glass of wine at the end of the day. You know, how many of us can't wait to get home, to have something to numb that, to help us deal with the issues? And I said, no, you got to face this. Whatever this is going on, you've got to face it. And a glass of wine at the end of the day, it's going to make you feel good. And you're not going to want to face it. So I'm actually glad that I am not doing that, you know. And so I wanted to share this with you today because I know I am not the only one with some issues. I know you have some issues. And you don't need to tell me what your issues are. You know what they are. And it's going to be up to you to face those issues and to deal with those issues in the right way. And sometimes some of us need some help and guidance. Sometimes we need a support system and someone to help us. And if you feel like you need that, if you don't know exactly what it is you need to be asking yourself and you know how you need to move through that self-reflective process, feel free to reach out to me on my website at marjoriephoenix.com. I'll send you some questions to sort of ask yourself to take you through that self-reflecting process. And it's something that you can do, and you can use those questions all the time, whenever you get in that state where you feel those issues are holding you down. So listen, there's nothing wrong with having issues. We all have them. You just got to be able to process them, deal with them, and face them. So I hope that this has blessed you in some way today. Thank you for hopping on. As usual, you can catch me everywhere on social media as Marjorie Phoenix. And on my website, I have a new free audio series that I just put up. It's the class that I did last year called the Phoenix Process, where I take you through a 3-part step of self-care, self-love, and self-healing that I did when I was moving through and transitioning through my crisis and my struggle in my life. So I have that up for you. It's a free audio series. Go ahead and jump in and take advantage of that. And if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me there. So as usual, thank you for joining me. Go out and change the world. Bye-bye.